I have a friend who is a philosophy teacher at a prestigious high school. And what's interesting about him as a philosopher, I don't think he would identify as a philosopher, but I would definitely call him one. And what's most unique about his position in academia is that he began to teach philosophy at a later point in life. And it seems as if his life has kind of led him to this point. He is a Vietnam veteran, someone who went to war. And then after going to war, he came back to the United States and started a company, and he ran that company for decades. And then upon selling the company, um, started to teach philosophy, and that type of arc is to me is essential because it goes beyond just textbook learning. Um, if anything, his learning came from the real world, and philosophy has just given him the words to best describe it. And I had a conversation with him a few years back where I'm still digesting it, but he talked about how we were at his dining room table, and he put his hand above the table and he said that you and we look at this object as a concrete object. We look at this table as a table. And he said, in reality, this table is at the most fundamental level is a bunch of atoms that have come together to make this table a table. And he said at one point the atoms are going to break apart from each other. And when that happens, we're not going to be seeing a table anymore. But that doesn't mean that the atoms that made the table cease to exist. It's not as if those atoms are annihilated and go poof and are no longer in the universe. And then he told me the same thing goes for you and for your body. He said that your body, as it is right now, are the collection of atoms that have harmonized to make you, you. And at some point during our lives, when our lives have ended, those atoms that make you, you are going to disperse. And then he told me, what are the chances of those atoms that make you, you, that when they disperse, that they would eventually find their way back to each other in the exact same form that it is now? He said, let's say that it took the equivalent of rolling a die 7 straights for 1,000,000,000,000 times in a row for that possibility of your atoms to harmonize the way they are now, for that to work. He's like, what's the likelihood of that happening? And I told him, not likely at all. And he said, correct. It's virtually impossible from a human's perspective of time. But because humans have a finite existence, our perception of time is also finite. And he said, but in the terms of the universe, in an infinite universe, it's only a matter of time for those atoms to harmonize the way that they are now. And as I mentioned before, I'm still digesting that way of thinking, and that type of idea in philosophical point of view lends itself to reincarnation. And obviously, I don't have the answer because I'm not sure if I've been reincarnated, and I haven't died yet, so I can't empirically prove anything. But I think it's just an interesting way to kind of start this grasping towards understanding what it's like to live in a universe that is unbounded by time, unlike us humans who have a limited amount of time in the form that we are now. Now, that brings me to my next point of what happens when you die. Again, I don't know what happens when you die because I haven't died yet. But James Altucher, an entrepreneur author, made a good point in one of his podcasts a few years ago where he said that he believes one of two things happen when you die. You either die and you're unaware of it, so that means it's as if life itself never happened at all. That's the first scenario, and if that's the case, it doesn't matter. And the second scenario is you die and you're aware that you're dead. So that if that was the case, whatever is aware that you have died, whatever that is aware that you have transitioned, that part of you is still alive. So you're not actually dead per se. And looking at those two scenarios, the first scenario, it's as if you never existed at all. So it is what it is. There's the existence and non-existence kind of counter each other out. But in the second scenario, that scenario where you are aware or somewhat aware that you have transitioned, is very interesting to me because whatever is doing the transitioning, whatever was aware that you had some type of existence before and now you're in a different existence, those are two different planes of reality that fit in the same box of the universe. And because of that, if that is the case and you have merely transitioned from one plane to another plane of existence, that means if that is the case, that means that as it stands right now, we are in infinity and we are in eternity right now. And when I say that coming from a Judeo-Christian background that often looks at death, at least from how I was raised, looking at death as a entrance into a retirement into the afterlife, and then you get into eternity. So for me, when I kind of walk through what I just walked you through in stating that we're in eternity right now, I guess my initial thoughts to that, with what I was raised to believe, I felt as if that kind of opens the gates and you could say that, well, right now I'm in eternity, and because of that, I don't have a sense of urgency because I'm going to live, whether it be in one form or another, forever in some type of fashion, moving forward. So that eternal existence is already captured. And to me, to look at it as something that removes sense of urgency is actually counterintuitive, because if we are in eternity right now, to me, that means that the decisions that we make, the way that we live life, the way that we treat others is even more crucial, because the way that we behave, the way that we act, the way that we continue to improve, or not improve, slides the scale of not only our existence, but also the existences of others that we encounter and that we impact. So, because we're in eternity right now, we can skew the the standard of living one way or another. So, for me, with this realization, if you will, that we could be in eternity right now, pushes me to try to move things forward in the positive direction, because it could just as easily slip back in the other direction. So I've had numerous conversations with friends about how um, the universe doesn't define what is good or what is bad. Humans do. And in that sense, humans are neither good nor bad, but we're on a spectrum, we're on a sliding scale that could go either way. And our decisions and our behaviors can push what direction we're impacting the world in either a good way or in a bad way. And because we're right now in eternity, that doesn't mean that we could just throw up our hands and kick back and say we've made it, because we haven't. Because that spectrum and that sliding scale is infinite. And if we don't take it as serious as it is of being in an infinite universe, who's to say that that scale might not get stuck on the wrong end of the spectrum? In, of course, terms of human perception. So I know that there was a lot thrown at you here. I'm still digesting it. I'm still working it through. And if there's something that doesn't make sense that I've laid out, that's on me. That is something that I have to work on. And I hope that if you feel confused about something that I'm presenting, that you would give me the chance to try to work through it myself, figure it out, and do a better job at communicating this idea that right now we are in an infinite universe, thus meaning that we're in eternity, and we have a high standard to hold ourselves to, and a sense of urgency to push things towards the good, so that way we can avoid the bad. And again, please, if this sounds like gibberish, give me the chance to work on my own perspective, work on my own point of view, to flesh this out even more. You can reach me through Twitter. Type in @_Lewis_Lee. Let me know what you think. And if it is making sense, I hope that it's helpful and practical enough to put yourself in a position like I have to think of how important it is to do what's good, because we have the infinite amount of time to do the bad, and who wants to drag out anything bad or evil longer than it needs to be? So with that, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a great week. I hope you're staying healthy and sane. And with that, much love.